After 20 years of building together through dust, deadlines, and damn good ideas, Pace and Adam invite you to join them for honest conversations about the home building world. Welcome to Build Connected, where experience meets insight, powered by Diamond Home Restoration.
Welcome back to Build Connected in episode 10. Hello, Adam.
Hello, Pace.
You know, episode 10 is a big one for me. My first goal was make it to number 1, right? And then make it to number 10. We did that, and to me, that's just demonstrating that we can create a habit and we can keep coming back. So it's a big deal to me. So congratulations, Adam.
Congratulations to you, Pace. I'm
Let's
happy
move
for
on
you.
to a different subject. Big eventful week for your daughter. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, okay. Well, you're putting me on the spot. Yeah.
You could say no.
No. Why not? Yeah, my 16-year-old daughter. She's going on a Knowles program, a Knowles trip. It's like a wilderness outdoor experience kind of thing, off to Tanzania. She's gonna do 10 days of some backpacking and then a few days of safari, and then she moves into the home of some village people, and it'll be her and another one of her friends that she's gonna be in the group with, and two of them live in the village and help build things and help the village people out, and it's gonna be really cool. I'm excited for her. Yeah.
Life-changing trip. Now,
Yeah, good stuff.
here's a lightning round question.
Ew.
Did not prepare you for this one. Do you say Tanzanians or do you say Tanzanites?
Tanzanians. With confidence.
Okay, there you go.
Oh, I have no
All
idea.
right, here we are in week 10. You're going to lead in. What do you got for us today?
Today we're going to talk about decking materials, specifically composite decking materials.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm a carpenter by trade, which propelled me eventually into becoming a general contractor. And my experience with wood runs deep. I love working with wood. I love building lots of things out of wood. But when it comes to decking material, I find that something that's low maintenance, that looks really nice, is the way to go. And I'm just speaking from experience. This is my preference. I've done this on my own house, and after installing composite decking, I'm like, man, I'm really happy I did this, because I've also lived with wood decking where I've had to, sand and refinish I wouldn't do it every couple of years. It looks like it needs to be done every year, but with the composite decking, it's just power wash and done. So yeah, big fan of that product. I think you and I, Pace, both of us, we try to tell our clients what the good is and what the bad is in going in the composite world. But there's lots of different flavors of companies to use. We are particular about the products that we like. Specifically, TimberTech is kind of our go-to. TimberTech is owned by AZEK. AZEK was just bought out by Hardy. And Hardy, I think that merger just took place, and this is the first week where it is now officially Hardy. No sponsor here by any of them, but we do love using their product because of the various selections they have. Everything from 5.5-inch board widths to, I think they have 7.5-inch board widths. They have porch boards, which are like a tongue and groove. And the biggest thing for us is that they offer their WUI approved decking products. And we've talked about WUI before. Basically, if you're in a fire zone, you're required to use WUI approved stuff. They have Class A WUI approved products and Class B. Class A is just a higher rating of fire resistance. I won't get into the details, but in any case, composite decking, we recommend it. We love using it. It's a great product.
All right, well, let's start with a shout out to Carlos. Let's give a shout out to Jake, right? We got to start there for their guidance, their knowledge, their help on previous projects. So thank you. Let's start there.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going to back up and just talk about the last 25 years. We've done redwood decks. We've done a ton of Ipe decks in this area. East Coast will call Ipe ironwood, so maybe a different term there. And then we've done lots of composite decks. Over our careers, composite decking has really gone through a few generations. The early generations were prone to mold and some other, defects because of the mix of organic and non-organic matter. But it's come a long way. So, I mean, it's durable now. The graining, the color variation, especially in the higher end boards, is fantastic. From afar, you cannot tell the difference from wood. If you're a contractor and you lay down on it, of course you do. I've got it on all my new decks on my house, and I love it. Yeah, and like you said, Woolly Zone, it's become our go-to. So love the product.
Yeah, if you're gonna go ahead and use this product as a homeowner, maybe you want to install it yourself and you're not hiring someone to do a small deck job. If you have questions, you can call people like Jake, who's our rep here on the West Coast. They're super knowledgeable and helpful. Each of their products requires different kind of things. For example, if you use their Class A fire resistant board, your spacing of your joist is very particular. It has to be 12 inches on center instead of 16 inches on center because it's a PVC material and it can sag. Just things like that. Don't be afraid as a homeowner to reach out to these people. They're there to help, and that's why another reason we love those guys, because their support is awesome and their products are great, and their stuff goes even beyond decking. We won't get into it, but if you're siding and trim and all that good stuff. And now that they're owned by Hardy, your options go even further. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to have future episodes on their other products for all around, all sides of the house. I've been promising for a few weeks now to talk pre-construction, and we're going to start on that today. I'm going to break it up, I think, into three parts. We're gonna talk about the early days of making the decision to start pre-construction, and what the early days looked like and what the early part of the process looks like. Next week we'll come back and we'll talk about what it actually looks like in the meetings, kind of like what's the meat of it, right? And then we'll finish up with things that we're still tweaking, trying to do better, and add on really to that idea of the value that we add to a project. So let's back up. For years and years and years, like most contractors, we got a set of finished plans, usually with a permit or at least within the permitting process. We typically found ourselves in the situation where we're one of three contractors bidding on jobs and investing all that time. It took a long time to arrive at this idea of pre-construction. And at its heart, what it means is we are sitting down at the very beginning of the design phase. We are joining the team early so that we can put real-time pricing to the plans as they take shape. That gives us a voice at the table, but it also allows us to be integral along the way, right? And that adds real value for a homeowner, right? They, like we've talked about in the past, they can make sure that their vision is staying within a budget. Before we started that process, right, you and I, Adam, we were sitting down and we were discussing internally, how do we pitch this, right? In general, the industry is providing free bids. How do we buck that trend? How do we say, no, we're not going to do that. We are going to approach it this way, right? There is a price tag that comes with the knowledge that we're providing, right? And the time that we're investing in the early stages of design. I can remember how nervous you and I were about how we pitched that to a client. Do you remember those days?
Oh man, yeah, it was stressful, but I think, for us, once you and I talked about what the process was going to look like, it was like the light bulb went off. It was like, how does this not make any sense to anybody? It was just so clear as day to us. And once we had that realization, it was so easy to talk about. But that hurdle of charging, right? Like, are people going to pay for this? And there was that hurdle to get over. Like you're right, like you were just saying.
Yeah, I mean, once you demonstrate that value, I think it becomes obvious on the homeowner's end too. Like I remember, I think we're talking 4 or 5 years ago when we first did this. I remember walking out of the meeting And you and I were blown away. Like I think we were nervous going in, but the reaction from the homeowner was like, this makes perfect sense, right? This is just another check for me to make sure things are on track. You and I walked out, and I think we were kind of like, why were we nervous? It just, everything just felt so right. And
What? I think you got people listening right now, Pace, saying, what makes sense? Tell me, tell me, tell the people what
well,
makes
it
sense.
makes sense. Just what I said. It's that check and balance, right? It's instead of your design getting out of whack with your budget, right? You know every step along the way. Okay, we want to add an addition. Okay, we want to add a guest house. Okay, we want to add a pool. We can now apply dollars to each one of those decisions so that you know as you're making decisions before an architect draws up details on multiple things, before you spend that money, you know that it's going to fall within your budget. I mean, that's where the value is.
Well, that's where the problem was, right? Let's just break it down really quick. You've got homeowner hires an architect. Architect puts together a full set of plans based on the dreams and aspirations of the homeowner, takes those plans, gives them to the engineer, and the engineer puts his plan set together. Meanwhile, the homeowner is paying thousands and thousands of dollars to the architect, thousands and thousands of dollars to the engineer. Now that those plans are done, the architect submits it to the building department, pays them thousands of dollars for the permit, and now they have a set of plans. And when they would go to multiple bids, like you and I used to do before we did this, they would find all of these bids were outside of their budget. What do they do now?
Yeah. And like if they're getting three bids, what we were finding is all three bids were over budget.
And so their only recourse was one of two options, right? It was either forget about the project and kiss all that money goodbye that they just spent on all these plans and permits, or pay additional fee to the architect and to the engineer and to the building department for all the revisions. So the pre-construction is set forth to avoid all of this mess.
Yeah. And this ties into what we were talking about last week. I think I said something like currently the plan set is more precious than the actual construction. And what I meant by that is, right, there's all of this fine detail. I don't know what the average is. On average, like our set of blueprints for a job is like 40 pages or something, right? And we've seen sets that are 100 pages. Gone are the days when you can have just a basic set to get a permit. Like a 4 or 5 page set. That doesn't exist in California any longer. And every one of those pages you add, you add money. And again, this is where things become regional. And you and I have talked about, we don't want to talk about dollar amounts on this show, but I'm gonna break the rule here for a second, right? Like I think at its minimum here, people are spending roughly 30 grand for a set of plans. We definitely work on projects where that number goes up to 150 grand, so it's a lot of money we're talking about in these plan sets. Compare that when I go back home to Maine and I talk to my buddies who are contractors, you might spend five, seven, $10,000 on a plan set for something basic, right? It's a world of difference. So my point is, as the requirements to get a permit, as the requirements for your plan set increase, so does the financial burden.
Great topic, Pace. Love the pre-construction, love talking about it, makes so much sense. And I think on our next podcast, you're going to get into the meat and potatoes of what our pre-construction really entails, the kind of step-by-step pathway that we take with the client and with the architect, with the engineer, so that we can get to a design that fits the budget.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to go through those rounds that we do. We're typically doing 2 to 3 rounds of pricing, and we'll just we'll give you a seat at the table and show you what those conversations look like and how they help the process along. Yeah.
Love it, love it. Let's
All right.
let's jump into a project that we're working on right now. And
Let's do it.
Let's talk about fun and exciting things going on our projects. So we have a project going on right now. You might have seen a couple of glimpses of it. We've posted a little bit on Instagram, but the project is located in my hometown here in San Anselmo, and it's basically a house that's on a hillside. We've got the back of the house, which has many decks on it, and there's also a pool on the back of the house. And because of this hillside, things are moving. The homeowners, they recently purchased the home. They've gone through this arduous process of plans and permits, which we've talked about in the past. It's taken well over a year. I don't know, how long has it been, Pace?
Yeah, I mean the design process has been a year and a half.
Okay, that's enough. Let's not get you started. I don't want to go down that path. You're just gonna turn into this whole thing, and we've talked about
Smart.
about a year and a half. In any case, this is a fun project. We've got a lot of technical things happening where we're drilling almost 30 piers. They're about 15 feet deep. We got to go hit some bedrock and drill into the bedrock. But all of these piers are necessary because of the hillside that we're on, and we have this pool that is actually starting to separate and slide down the hill. And in order to stop that from happening, there's a lot of concrete work, grade beams, and piers gonna be dug to help support that. In addition, these piers will be helping to support the home itself from moving, and also all these new decks we're building. But I think what I wanted to talk about a little bit is really the discovery phase. Right now we're almost done all of our demolition on this project, and I think a big question that homeowners ask is, what can I expect for change orders? And we tell everybody the same thing. Change orders are caused really by two things. Pace, maybe you'll jump in here if there's something else you can think of, but it's usually something that the homeowner wants to add that wasn't on the plans, or something that we discovered in this demo/discovery phase that needs attention. And that's what we found on this job. So for example, as we opened up the space, we exposed the existing foundation retaining wall area. And after all of our demo is done, we are required to have our engineer come on site to do an inspection. And after that inspection, he found that the foundation had a couple of cracks in it, and that it was deflecting, meaning that that wall was starting to push off to the side. And he's trying to, I think the engineer right now is trying to solve for repairing those cracks. And generally, the kind of cracks that we're talking about are straightforward repairs for us. It's really, about drilling and epoxying rod in the right places, depending on what the engineer tells us to do. But with this deflection, I think the engineer is saying something like the wall was either poured that way, or we had this hillside water pressure pushing against the wall, which he might require us to put a French drain on the back of this wall. So these are the kind of things that we find in discovery sometimes. And it's a good thing, right? These are important things that are structural to the house that we can now address, but they do result in a change order. We've seen way, way worse things than what we're seeing now, and we've seen less. But you as a homeowner can expect on a large project to go through this discovery phase. And when you do have your kind of final fixed number, or if you're doing a T&M kind of project, you really want to have in the back of your mind having a little bit of a slush fund. We usually say 10% to put aside for things like that.
Yeah, I think that's right. All right, this is story time for me. I'm just gonna.
I'm gonna take a nap. Hang on.
You're gonna zip it. You're
Sure
just gonna
doesn't go
sit
back.
back for the ride.
All
I
right.
don't want any follow-up questions. This is my story time right now.
Ooh, how
Okay,
exciting.
before I do that, before I take you down a small journey, so you mentioned the foundation on this one. The other ones that we've talked about are things like dry rot and like pest infestation. Those are really common
We
ones.
did find a lot of the pest infestation on this one, but
Yeah,
again,
lots of rats.
Yeah, lots of holes.
But here we go. This is my time now. In the past, I got two incredibly exciting discoveries. So going way back, I remember digging once for a foundation and I was down in the hole, finding a dead body buried. That was exciting. We
Where
shut
was
down
that?
the project. We had to bring in the state police. There was a whole cold case, like blah, blah, blah. Exciting. And there was another time we were digging for we were building a carriage house and digging the foundation, and there was an unmarked child's grave. So we found like a buried little body, and again had to shut down and just you have to go through this like historical sort of research thing, and the police are involved. Shuts down the job for a little bit, but very, very exciting discoveries. No
I thought
change
you were
orders.
I thought you were going to talk about the discovering the pornographic film reel that was black and white from God knows when that we found inside of a wall. No
You can
change
tell
order
that
for that
story.
either. What's that?
You can tell that story. Oh,
Well,
you
I
did.
mean, that's the story, I guess. We opened up a wall and found a couple of old black and white reels that had some pornographic material on it.
Yeah, no charge for that. I think that ended up in the company safe. We got that for later. Anyway, episode 10. Very, very exciting on our end. Glad you guys have joined us for the ride. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for joining us on Build Connected.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Pace.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks for joining us on Build Connected. For more stories, insights, and ideas, visit diamondhomerestoration.com or find us on Instagram and LinkedIn. We'll be back next week. We hope you will too.